I wanted to take a few minutes and just give you my take on this whole kind of sideways summer, which is now turned into sideways fall, right? So one of the things that we're seeing from a technical analysis perspective is that the funding rates for the perpetual futures have been rising, which usually indicates that the market could be a little bit vulnerable to an unexpected downside move. We did get that move on Wednesday of this week, and the markets have since recovered. But the rise in the perp funding rates, like I said, it often indicates markets are vulnerable to expected downside moves. Traders leverage positions in a speculative bullish trend. And in other words, right, if traders are over leveraged, a small move to the downside could trigger a cascading set of unwinds, which could cause a precipitous fall as that leverage then completely unwinds. We'll see. I think the worst of it was behind us for this week. We had a move, I think, down to 58K or 59 and change or 58 and change. And we're now back above 60K as of the recording of Money Talks today. It's going to be really interesting. I mean, Ethereum has had quite the year. Basically, Ethereum is flat for the year or even down a little bit, which is truly remarkable. I mean, if you look at Bitcoin, Solana, they are up big this year. And Ethereum is basically, after 9 months and change, right where it started. And certainly has a sell print on it, whereas Bitcoin and Solana are kind of neutral prints right now from a technical perspective, given that they've been sideways for so many months after some pretty big run-ups. I mean, you got to remember, Solana's had a 7x run in the last 12 months, and it was a 10x run when it peaked back in April. And Bitcoin last October was at about 27,000. And it's at 60,000 now. So that's a little over a 2x run for Bitcoin. And its peak in April, it was closer to a 2.5x run, right? Because it had peaked at somewhere around 73,500. So interesting that both Solana and Bitcoin have far outpaced Ethereum this cycle. I've talked about my feelings on that many, many times. Still very bullish on Solana. Solana does have some interesting competition coming. The Sui network had some remarkable numbers and a big, huge run from September 1st until today. It's up almost 3x, right? So that's 5 weeks. Jesus, quite the run for Sui. As a matter of fact, it was up over 3x until earlier this week and then pulled back. The candle, it's a reversal candle right now if it confirms, right? So it's certainly a topping reversal candle. It looks like a spinning top, as we call it in technical analysis. So Sui, while it looks super bullish, it's certainly to reconfirm the prior highs from March of this year at about $2.20. If it crosses $2.20 on the weekly chart, I'd probably start buying Sui, and that could happen anytime given the current numbers. But that's just my reading of the technical tea leaves. I'm bullish on it long term either way. I'm also bullish on Aptos right now. I was happy enough to get some time with the Aptos team. I think Aptos is basically flat on the year, right? So pretty much at the same price it started the year at, maybe up a little bit on the year, but more or less flat for the year. That's after a huge run up from $8 to $20 in late March, and it's all the way back down to $8 again. So I'm bullish long term on Aptos. We're seeing some very impressive scalability numbers there and some strong developer interest. Sui, Aptos, Solana, clearly getting the majority of the L1 developer interest these days, certainly in terms of growth. We're not going to count Ethereum out. I think Ethereum is doing some really interesting things, and we've got some news out of Vitalik this week where he did mention that they're going to be doing some improvements which should improve Ethereum's throughput by about 50%. I hope they basically eliminate this L2 market. I get it. I understand why it exists. I'm okay with it. But long term, I think that the scalability models for the next generation L1s are going to eat Ethereum's lunch unless it figures this L2 problem out. I know that the majority of ETH maxis strongly disagree with me on this, but there's no denying that the developer interest is proving me right. Okay, so again, sideways summer has turned into sideways fall. If we look at the Solana chart, right, it's basically, we're at the same price we were at in March. We're now in month 7 of sideways movement here with more or less falling volume. That's what you want to see in a consolidation phase. Now, if I look at the price of Solana per Bitcoin, this is remarkable. Now, this is the weekly chart. You can see the wedge in the green lines that I've painted on the screen here. I'm going to zoom in so that you can see it. This is the price of Sol per Bitcoin going all the way back to 2021, you can see it spiked back in 2021 at about 0.0045 SOL per Bitcoin. And that was about 3 years ago. I think that if you see this rising wedge, right? So if you go back to last summer, since then, the price of SOL per Bitcoin is up about 4x or 5x, which is remarkable. Makes sense since, SOL is up 7x versus Bitcoin only up 2x. And this wedge looks like it wants to play itself out by the end of the year, right? My reading of the tea leaves has it resolving itself by mid-December or sooner, right? Can certainly resolve itself tomorrow by falling or rising above. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a fake move to the downside before the election, below the wedge, below the pennant, and then scream higher. If we close on a weekly candle above this pennant, I think Solana is going to Valhalla. I really do. Now, I have no crystal ball that says if or when that might happen. But I would not be surprised if when we see 100K Bitcoin, we could easily see $400 or $500 Solana, which would probably put us back up in this all-time high for the Solana Bitcoin price here. So this is a dramatic pennant, folks. If you do any kind of technical chart analysis, this is not an hourly or daily chart. This is a weekly chart. Look at this consolidating pennant, which has been happening since December of last year. It's truly remarkable. It's one of the most beautiful pennants I've seen for an exponentially growing asset like Solana. So it kind of reminds me of Ethereum in the 2021 run-up, and hopefully you remember what happens there. I mean, Ethereum just mooned after that. So hopefully good things on the horizon here as we come out of the doldrums of what went from sideways summer to sideways fall.